Hello and welcome to yet another top 10 video. I like doing these. I don't know if people actually like watching them, but it doesn't matter because I get enjoyment out of it. So I have another one that I've been meaning to do for a long time, and I've never gotten around to it. But now we do. So, without further ado, I announce the top 10 RPGs that deserve hate. We had the top 10 RPGs that don't deserve hate. So now we have the top 10 RPGs that do deserve hate. This includes both JRPGs and CRPGs, just all kinds of RPGs. The top 10 ones that I believe deserve to be hated. This is going to cause a lot of consternation and maybe some constipation. It's I'm sure some people will be angry about this, but keep in mind before you do, I want you to know that it's just my opinion. Okay, it's just one old man's opinion. There's a lot of things that I don't like in games, things that annoy the heck out of me. And if you know me personally, then you know the things I don't like. So, let's get on with it. All right? All right. Don't want this video to be like 2 hours long. So, coming in at number 10 would be Final Fantasy VIII. Now, I know a lot of people do like this game, and it is, a Square game. It's Final Fantasy. It's PS1 era. People love it. I did not. I've beaten Final Fantasies 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, and 11. But you notice I didn't say Final Fantasy 8. Final Fantasy 8 was a game that I got and I was really hyped about it. I even bought the action figures when the game released and I was like so hyped, man. I was ready for it. Graphics were good. It was kind of like, a little bit more modern. The character designs were more mature. It was going to be a love story. Yeah, it didn't work out that way. Not only is it a game, let's look at the story for a minute, right? It's a love story where the two main characters who are in love never actually say I love you. I know people. I bring that up in message forums, and they're like, "Well, that's because it's subtle. You don't understand subtlety, you incel." It's like, look, I've been in love. I've been married. I mean, you say "I love you" to people. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you, man. Maybe in your isekai stories and your animes, they don't. But here, when we're not in a harem anime, we say "I love you." So, but other than that, I mean, the major flaws in the game are the gameplay. Who who is the one responsible for making the enemies gain levels as you gain levels? It has to be the dumbest thing in a JRPG I've ever seen. I can understand in like Wizardry 8 or Might and Magic or something in a CRPG, but in a JRPG? Here's the problem with that game. You don't earn magic. You have to leech magic out of enemies. So to leech magic out of enemies, you have to grind enemies. And when you grind magic out of enemies and build up all these levels, you get very high level very quickly. Thus, the enemies that you're fighting also gain levels. So you're caught in this constant loop. By halfway through the game, I soft locked myself because I was such a high level that even normal enemies on the map were one-shotting me. And I quit playing. I was like, who in the hell devised this goddamn system? This whole draw magic system has to be the worst thing I've ever seen in an RPG. It's absolutely ridiculous. The game is a steaming pile of dog shit, and I'll never play it. And I'll never understand how people can actually get through to the end. I remember I worked with this guy a long time ago, and he was bragging. He said, "Oh yeah, me and my girl, we went through Final Fantasy VIII, and it took her an hour and a half to beat the last boss." And I'm thinking, like, you're bragging about that? Like, I don't have that much time to sit down and play a game normally, let alone just the boss. So I don't know if he's full of shit or not, but I have seen videos where the last boss does take a long time in a game. So you know what? Nah, I'm not down with that. No. So, again, coming in at number 9, we'll pass the Final Fantasy thing off, let that stir. There's a lot of people that get angry about that. Coming in at number 9 is Dungeon Lords. Now, here's the funny thing about Dungeon Lords. I bought that game when it came out because I was a big fan of D.W. Bradley. I liked Wizardry 6 and 7. And I thought, gee, he's making his own games now. Should be worth checking out, right? So I got Dungeon Lords. And the funny thing is, I actually liked the game originally. I mean, when I started it, it was. We'll get to what I don't like about it later. And everybody on the official forums for it, back on those, I think it was the Whirlpool forums, there was some forum for it that I'm not going to mention, but a very famous RPG internet celebrity was a member of that forum, and he held that forum with an iron fist. He's very well known to this day, but I'm not going to say who. And whatever he believed, everybody else on the forum would parrot. So he decided he hated Dungeon Lords. So everybody ganged up on me on the forum because I liked the game, right? So I ended up playing a little bit, and then I started to realize what was bad about the game. And all of a sudden, I started hating it too. But because this guy was jealous of me, this famous internet reviewer guy, he all of a sudden decided he liked Dungeon Lords, and it was a good game. And then everybody changed their opinion and liked it, and then went back to hating me again because I hated it. And I was banned from the forum. So I'll just let people, think about who that is and where that was. But Dungeon Lords, and no, it wasn't the Codex, though the guy is a poster on there. So Dungeon Lords starts out as a pretty decent game. It's a dungeon crawler. There's lots of combat, lots of loot, lots of character classes, flexibility in those character classes. Seems pretty good, right? Here's the problem. Even when they updated the game, and they had to update it because there was such an outcry about it, the game is incredibly janky. Most of the buildings are completely empty. The NPCs and their quests are so plain vanilla and boring that you just want to bash your head into the table. Um, the combat is just you mashing the button constantly. That's all you're doing. And there's no matter what class you play as, no matter what race you play as, it's basically the same game. And you're just constantly mashing the buttons and killing things that constantly nonstop respawn right out of nowhere. I mean, you literally have enemies will spawn like 5 feet in front of your face. And the game is notorious for slowing down, and even on modern systems does not run very well. It's just an absolute. Here's the funny thing, right? I got about 2/3 of the way through the game, and I found this area where I could level grind because the enemy spawns were getting so hard to control. I figured I'd level grind to level up. So I level grinded too far and somehow locked the game where the game just wouldn't go forward anymore. Like the doors wouldn't open and enemies wouldn't come out and the quests wouldn't trigger. So I was never able to beat the game. There's even this problem even now in the game where if you play certain races, you can't fit into certain areas. Like if you play as an orc, which is the tallest character, there's some places where you literally can't go in because your head is too big. So, yeah, it deserves a lot of hate. It's a piece of steaming crap. Okay, so we'll just leave it at that. Okay, coming in at number 8 would be Ultima 9. Now, Ultima 9, I bought that game when it came out. That was Christmas of 1999, I believe. Yeah. This is another funny one. I used to go to the OWO boards, the Origin Worlds Online boards. I was a frequent poster there. And a lot of the people defended the game. They felt like because it was an Ultima game, they had to defend it with their life. Like it was their wife and they were defending its honor. I hated it. It was a steaming pile of donkey shit. And of course, they all railed me on the friggin' forums and booted me off of there, and I ended up getting banned for cursing a guy out. Me and my temper. And Ultima 9, I did not. Here's the thing about Ultima 9, right? I know a lot of people worship this game, a lot of younger gamers, because they think it's like the pre-Morrowind. It's not. I can talk to my friend Dan about it. He's around my age, and he agrees with me that the game is an absolute steaming pile. Get this. When the game came out, it couldn't run on anybody's system. Nobody could get that game to run decently unless you had a 1 gigahertz PC. And this is in 1999. I was running a 450 megahertz with a Riva TNT card, which was considered a pretty decent machine at the time. But this game required a gigahertz and like a GeForce 3. It wasn't until like 2 years after it came out that you could actually get this game to run decently. Because the geniuses who programmed it decided that every single object in the entire world would actually be present and accounted for no matter where you were in the world. So everything was loaded into memory, like there were no loading zones, right? This was an open world game in 1999. So true open world games were very hard to find at that time. I mean, you had Daggerfall in 96, and that game was buggy as hell for years. Open world games just simply couldn't be done yet. It wouldn't be until like maybe Morrowind or Gothic 2 that open world games like kind of started to, become doable with hardware. But not only that, Ultima Nine's combat was ridiculous. I mean, they used to call no, I think they called Ultima 8 Super Ultima Brothers, but to me, Super Ultima Brothers was Ultima 9 because you literally just like took your hand and moved it forward like you're swinging an axe in Minecraft. That was the Avatar, the world's most fearsome warrior, a guy who saved the world multiple times over, is hacking enemies like, like he's waving a flag of surrender. It was hideous. Now, you could learn later in the game other combat disciplines, but it still looked the same and basically did the same amount of damage. It was ridiculous. He shuffled real slow. The enemy AI was horrible. The whole thing, I mean, you want to see jank? Go watch a playthrough of that game. It is jank as F. And not only that, but it also pissed on the history of Ultima by completely retconning everything that was done in Ultima 8. They never really do anything with it. And, I mean, you can go and Google the whole Bob White plot. Just, I think it was called the Bob White plot. Because they scrapped the original story for Ultima 9. And because they wanted to reel in gamers who had never played an Ultima game, because they wanted to get newbies, they just started from scratch and acted like, oh, Avatar's coming back and Britannia's in trouble. We better go save it. Not even talking about all the horrible things that he did in Pagan that went against his religion. Completely vanished. All the powers that he picked up, the ether powers, no, doesn't matter. It's all gone. So, Ultima 9 was just a train wreck when it came out. It was absolutely horrible. I never beat that game. I got fairly far when it first came out, but there were so many better games to play at the time. I remember I stopped playing it to play Suikoden 2 for the, or Suikoden, is that how you pronounce it? For the PlayStation 1, and I never looked back. I was like, screw that, I'm never playing that again. So yeah, Ultima 9, steaming pile. Got nothing good to say about it. Okay, coming in at number 7, let me take a drink here. Coming in at number 7 is Time Stalkers. Time Stalkers was a very early Dreamcast RPG. I know nowadays the whole roguelike thing is popular and people really love it, but I hated the idea when I first got it. I hated the idea that you build levels and when you leave the dungeon, your levels go back to 1 and you lose everything that you gained. I was like, what is the point in playing an RPG, a dungeon crawler, where every time I leave the dungeon, I go back to level 1? I'm a bit of a grind whore, and I like to min-max my characters, and when you take away all of my work, my desire to play the game any further is gone. That's, I think, one of the reasons why I can't do these roguelikes that people keep releasing on Steam, and they keep bragging about them and saying how great they are. It's like, dude, I'm not going to have my levels lowered back to 1. I recently played that Ball X Pit game, which kind of does that. And I played it for a bit, and it was fun, but eventually I just felt that, the progression just wasn't there. But at least you do build levels on the side, like you still have core experience levels that do go up and are retained after each run, even though you start the run like as a sub-level of 1 and have to build your way up. But still, I mean, Time Stalkers, it just flats you down to 0. For that reason, I was never able to play the game, and I hated it. It does have a big fan, not a big fandom, but it has a convincingly devoted fandom online, and I just will never understand why people liked that game. So, whatever. Okay, moving on. Number 6 would be Metal Heart Replicants Rampage. Now, the funny thing about Replicants Rampage is that was one of the games that I walked into EB Games one time, and I just saw the box on the wall and thought, that's a new game. I never heard of that. Let's pick it up. It's European, right? And it looks like Fallout. Should be fun. Yeah, no, it wasn't. Metal Heart was, and it's kind of obscure. I would suggest looking up some videos on YouTube after you're done watching mine. It's basically You know how there's Fallout, but then there's like Temu version Fallout? You know how Temu, the cheap Chinese store? Yeah, it's like the Temu version of Fallout. It's like, Mom, I want Fallout. It's like, no, we have Fallout at home, and gives you Metal Heart. Metal Heart was horrible. I mean, just the fact that it crashed a lot and had an engine that was never really fixed. But the translation into English was horrible. Like, you could barely understand what NPCs were telling you to do because the English was so garbled. It's like, it's almost like they machine translated it. Like they just took it through Google or something. I don't even think the ability to do that was possible back then. But it's like they just did a machine translation, and it's like the most hideously translated game I've ever seen. And I mean, even the voice acting was completely bad. But getting on the actual gameplay, one thing that I couldn't stand about it, why I didn't play it more than like 7 or 8 hours, is that the game never really told you what to do. And if they did, because the dialogue was so bad, you never really understood what the game was trying to get you to do. Plus, there was no auto map. There was no, as far as I remember, I don't think there was a map at all. I mean, at least, there was an auto map in Fallout. You could bring up the Pip-Boy at any time, and it would give you a basic map where you saw where things were and you could go to them, I mean, you don't have to make it like a super detailed map. But the game was just an absolute. It's sad because I think Metal Heart could have been good if it probably was worked on for a couple more years and they released. I think what it was, I don't even remember the company that made it, but it's sort of like they wanted to just latch on to Fallout's success and make a game that was like Fallout, and they thought enough people would fall for it that they would pay for the game. Yeah, it was horrible. Even the main character was like a complete and total Riri. So I played it for at most like 7 or 8 hours, uninstalled it, put it on the shelf, never touched it again. I don't even like to admit that I bought the game. So, Metal Heart, I don't recommend it. If you want to hurt yourself and you're into, pain, then go ahead, download it somewhere and play it. But don't say I didn't warn you. Okay. Number 5. Now we get into the nitty gritty. Some of the worst games I ever played in my life. Number 5, Mistmare. Now here's the thing about Mistmare. Mistmare is a game that I never actually physically played. And I'm going to tell you how this started. Mistmare was a game that I wanted. It's the early 2000s. And you know me, I'm really big into European CRPGs. So I heard about, I think it was a French game. It was by a French developer. Mistmare. I had played Arx Fatalis. That game was French. And I was like, man, I can't wait to try more French CRPGs, right? Well, the developer decided he wasn't going to release it in America. Do you want to know why? I was a member of the official forums back then. Do you want to know why he didn't release it to America? Because he hated George Bush in the Iraq War and thought Americans were disgusting for what they were doing. And because he hated Bush and hated the war on terrorism, he decided not to release his game in America. I think he eventually did. But there was a lot of bullshit on the forums around that time where this developer hated Americans. Like, he just absolutely, of course he was French, right? So yeah, all the French people hate Americans, right? But especially at that time during the lead up to the Iraq War and the coalition of the willing and George W. Bush and all the things that were going on at that time, there was a lot of anti-American sentiment. Sort of like there is now, but we're not going to get into that politics right now. So, but Mistmare, I only knew Mistmare from the videos I saw of it and the reviews I read. Apparently, they had a lot of really messed up systems in it. Like, treasure chests would only open at certain times, were only openable at certain times of the night. So, like, if you saw a treasure chest, you'd have to come back at a certain time of day to open it, or it wouldn't open. The combat was incredibly jank, like, far worse than Ultima 9. It was that bad. I'm just looking at reviews for it here. IGN gave it a 3 out of 10. GameSpot gave it a 1.7. Said it's more punishment than game and is better used as a medieval torture device due to its hundreds of bugs, abysmal play mechanics, and Byzantine dialogue littered with typographical errors. IGN also criticized the game, saying it was unplayable and its interface and controls were horrible. and that the game is virtually unplayable and more horrendous than the Inquisition. These are just, I'm just reading, there were multiple sources highlighting graphical slowdown, abysmal frame rates, twitchy camera system that pans and rotates unpredictably. A mouse cursor is described as floating and always a split second behind your hand, making basic combat actions like opening chest or casting spells excruciating. Combat is particularly frustrating due to unreliable controls, with one reviewer noting that combat seems very, very painfully slow and easy to be quickly killed because you couldn't click on an opponent, and the lack of a save function and the need to manually scroll lengthy dialogue were also significant complaints. So see, I never got to play this game because when I wanted it, he refused to release it in America, and he finally did release it long after I had already heard it was shit. But from everybody I've ever heard, and I've seen some videos on YouTube of it since, I'm glad I never played it. Because I probably would have smashed the damn thing over my knee. So, Mistmare, that's getting a big number 5 on my top 10 list. Okay, so number 4. Number 4 would be Might and Magic 9. Might and Magic 9 was a game I held off on buying for a while because everything that I saw online when it released told me I wouldn't like it. It just didn't look right. Just something about it wasn't jiving with me. I beat all the other Might and Magics before it. Was a huge Might and Magic fan. So, of course, I figured I'd get 9. I finally got it. I think I found it on sale in the bargain bin of a Walmart. This is no joke. Probably like 3 years after it came out. And I bought it. And I took it home, and it was an absolute piece of crap. I think it was built on the Lithtech engine, the same engine that the No One Lives Forever games and Shogo Mad were running on. I believe it was Lithtech. But whatever it was, the engine was a real-time engine, and the game played in real time. I think it did have a pause, but it was still a real-time game, and the combat was so abysmal. And I remember suffering through the combat. The combat was real time and more like a shooter, which already was turning me off. And I got to the very first town in the game, and there were no NPCs at all in the town. The town was completely empty, nothing but polygons and some doorways. And I went to the doorways, and it just like moved to like the buy-sell interface. It was, and I know what you're saying, but that's the way the old Might and Magics were. Yeah, dude, the old Might and Magics in the 1980s and early 90s, you dumb shit. I mean, Might and Magic 6, 7, 8, they were all 3D games in 3D engines. Technically not 6, but they had NPCs walking around and there were full open worlds that you could actually explore and talk to people. 9? No. For whatever reason, 9 actually took the game back 15 years and was a steaming pile of donkey crap. The combat was horrible. There were no NPCs. The towns were vacant. I don't even know what the story was about. So I ended up uninstalling that game, and I played it years later because I couldn't remember if it was good or not. And I realized very quickly, yeah, it's absolute crap. So, beyond that, I never played the game again. So, leaving that at number 4. All right. Coming in at number 3. Oh, number 3 would be Gothic 4 Arcania. A game so bad that it actually took the Gothic 4 name out of its title because all of us Gothic fans rode the developers so hard in the forums. They had to take Gothic 4 out. You'll see Arcania on Steam now, and you'll notice it doesn't have anything pointing to Gothic 4 because they were bullied by us fans to take that name off the fucking title. Serious. It was that bad. I had never played, and it's not that the combat is janky, it's not that the writing is bad, it's not. What really is bad about Arcania is it's so damn plain vanilla. It's just a plain vanilla. It's almost like Two Worlds. You know the game Two Worlds? It's just a plain vanilla game like that where you walk around, use the same attack to beat all the enemies, level up, get a new weapon, and repeat. That's it. The quests aren't exciting. The story is non-existent. The NPCs are worthless and unimaginative. The game is just completely devoid of any kind of substance. It's like eating plain chicken without any seasoning or breading. It's like having mashed potatoes but without any salt, pepper, or corn, or chives, or garlic added in. It's just plain. I don't know. I think there are some people that actually do like it, but the game was just so dull. I went about maybe a little over halfway through, and I remember walking into this one town where I walked in. I wanted to see if the NPCs had schedules like they do in the first three Gothic games. So I waited till the NPCs go to bed, and because if you follow the NPC, it's like Gothic 1 and 2. You could actually follow the NPCs around and they go to the bathroom, they hunt for food, they cook the food at the campfire at the night, take a piss on the tree, you know, if that's your fetish. But there's real things that the NPCs do. They live their life. You could follow an NPC and watch as they live their life in the game. So I did that with Gothic 4. I followed the NPCs to the barracks where they were sleeping. And you know what they did? They went to lay down on the bed and their eyes and mouths stayed open the whole time. They just basically T-posed on the bed and did nothing. Eyes and mouth still open. I thought that is so incredibly lazy. That laziness, that dullness permeates the entire game. That's exactly what Gothic 4, aka Arcania, is. It killed the Gothic series. That's why you don't see any more Gothic games. Why it took a fan game to actually drum up any kind of interest in Gothic anymore. It's sad because Gothic 3, even though it's a good game, had a rocky start too, but it's not as bad as 4. 4 was an absolute steaming pile. So, stay away from that. You don't want to play it. Okay, now, coming up to the real kings of the genre now. Coming in at number 2, Pool of Radiance 2. Now here's a game that got pushed back a couple of months because its release was around September 11th, 2001. So you know what kind of happened there. I remember being a fan waiting for it because I had the collector's edition pre-ordered at GameStop. And, I was real excited for it. It got delayed. No big whoop. I bought it when it came out. Was ready to play it that fall of 2001. Yeah, that didn't last too long. So here's the thing about Pool of Radiance 2. The first thing is, the game was so bad that when you went to install it, it actually uninstalled your Windows installation. Yes, you heard correctly. Before it was patched a couple months after release, if you uninstalled Pool of Radiance 2, like you didn't like the game and decided to uninstall it, it would uninstall crucial components of your Windows operating system, basically borking your computer. And you would have to completely do a new Windows reinstall. Yeah, thankfully that wasn't me. I kept it installed even though, because I still believed I could play it. And then when that happened, I installed the patch, got rid of the game, and never played it again. But here's the real problem with Pool of Radiance 2, right? It was originally supposed to be a second edition D&D game. But third edition came out right before the game did, and I think it was Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast or whoever owned the rights to them demanded that the game be made third edition. So they had to take a second edition game and shoehorn it into third edition. That didn't go too well. So in the game, you couldn't pick your own feats. The feats were auto-picked for you because they didn't even have the infrastructure within the game to allow picking of feats. So get this. If you played a mage, and people were making fun of this on the forums when it came out, if you played a mage, the first feat you would get as a mage would be power attack. I know. People were cracking up about that. They're like, power attack? Who the fuck gets power attack for a goddamn mage? So the game was just an absolute wreck. It wasn't second edition. It wasn't third edition. It was crap. And get this. The game only had like 4 or 5 monster types in the entire game. So you were fighting the same zombies at the beginning of the game all throughout. Only their armor class and health would increase. So I remember I was like a little over halfway in the game and I was fighting, keep in mind this is third edition rules. I was fighting zombies that had like 45 to 55 armor class and about 250 to 350 hit points. Yes. Now, as if that's not bad enough, if they're not hit point sponges enough, the game had no way to speed up its combat, and the zombies would crawl so slowly through combat. You would literally be waiting like 5 minutes for all the zombies you were fighting to have their turn. It was incredibly boring. That game, and get this, 90% of the game took place on the same tile set that just repeated endlessly, with the same background sounds and music that repeated endlessly, with some of the worst art you have ever seen in your life. That game, and the thing is, I wanted to like it. Because at that time, the Infinity games, the Infinity Engine games like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and Icewind Dale 1 and 2, and Planescape Torment, they were the hot games of the moment. Keep in mind, this game came out in 2001, like a year after BG2, and like a year before Icewind Dale 2. And I wanted to like it because it was a turn-based game, and it was so hard to find turn-based CRPGs at that time. It was extremely hard. Turn-based was dead. Real time with pause is all anybody used, and old grognards like me that wanted turn-based, we were hoping Polar Radiance 2 was good, but it was a steaming pile, and I tried so hard to get through that game, but with all the things I told you about it, yeah, it was pretty impossible to find any love for that game, and I ended up uninstalling it after the patch, and I never played the game again. I still have the collector's edition sitting on my shelf, and the funny thing about that is it came with a novelization of the game, and I remember many, many years later, I got bored at work. This is when I was working in a dry cleaners around like 2009, and because the dry cleaners was on the wrong side of town and it was usually dead in there, I had hours to just sit around doing nothing, so I brought that book in to read. And I sat down and read the book, and I was like, damn, the book, they were right, the book is way better than the game. The book was actually good. The Polar Radiance 2 book, I think it was, I can't remember the name of the lady that wrote it. Carrie Bebris or something. I don't know, look it up. The book was actually decent. I actually sat down and read it all in one sitting at work. And I was like, wow, I wish the game was this good. So it wasn't a total loss. The novelization was pretty decent. But other than that, the game was absolute donkey crap. Okay, so that leaves us to number one. What is the top RPG that deserves hate? Anybody have any ideas? Well, the number one RPG that deserves hate is Lunar Dragon Song for the Nintendo DS. Now, I'm a big fan of Lunar. I think there's a lot of you out there probably are. It's a very popular JRPG series, even though there's only ever been two of them. When Dragon Song was about to come out, I was hype. I was like, all right, we're going to get new Lunar games. I think it was a prequel. Whatever, I didn't care. I just wanted new Lunar stuff. And it was absolute garbage. So get this. First of all, the every time you run in the game, and since enemies are visible in the world map, you kind of want to run around them. Yeah, well, when you run, you actually lose magic points. I think it was magic points or HP, one or the other. And that is just such a stupid... Why are you going to make enemies visible on the map and then punish you for trying to get around those enemies? Makes no sense. Then, when you do get in combat, you know how in most RPGs, just about every JRPG, if an enemy dies before you have your attack defaults to the next enemy over? Yeah, it doesn't do that in Lunar Dragon Song. If you select the first slime, let's say there's two slimes on the screen, right? And your partner kills that first slime, and you were selected to attack that slime, your attack won't default to the second slime. It'll attack the slime that's already dead, meaning you do nothing for that round. You know how incredibly infantile that shit is? That annoyed the hell out of me with that game. Between that and the soundtrack was horrible, and Lunar is known for having really good soundtracks. The story was... I can't even remember the story. That's how bad it was. The characters were little kids and they weren't even interested. The whole game was just an absolute slap in the face to Lunar. And it was so bad that, you will never hear any Lunar fan ever talk about that game. And if you do get them to talk about it, they're going to be very upset. It was that bad. And it did kind of kill the series because notice we've never had any sequel to Lunar ever since. We've had remakes. They just released a remake of the first two on Steam, but you notice they didn't remake Dragon Song, did they? No. You're never going to see a remake of that. You're never going to see anyone admit it even exists. So, yeah, that game, for killing off an entire series and actually becoming invisible and persona non grata to all the fans of the series. I have to give Lunar Dragon Song the top spot. So that's my top 10 list. That means 10 was Final Fantasy VIII, 9 was Dungeon Lords, 8 was Ultima 9, 7 was Time Stalkers for the Dreamcast, 6 was Metal Heart Replicants Rampage, 5 was Mistmare, 4 was Might and Magic 9, 3 was Gothic 4 Arcania, 2 was Pool of Radiance 2, and the number one RPG that truly deserves hate was Lunar Dragon Song for the Nintendo DS. A good system that had a lot of good RPGs, but that sure as heck wasn't one of them. So, I hope you enjoyed my rant, my little top 10 list of evil games, or at least horrible games. If you didn't, oh well, just downvote the video then. But that's just my opinion. These are the 10 games I honestly could not stand. And I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe one of your games is up there on that list too. If not, oh well. Anyway, have a good night and happy gaming.